off the high water truck, and this is what he had to say about his ordeal through Ida.
I had water almost to the top of my ACs in my house, and I saved my dog. I took what I could take, and I probably ain't got nothing left when I go back, but at least I got my life.
They're going to get off to either a shelter or a place where they can make contact with family members. But of course, that is difficult because we have no power and in some cases, no cell service. So it's going to be difficult to call the loved ones and get certainly their next step in what is going to be a long process of cleanup and getting back to some type of normalcy after Ida. Reporting in Crown Point, Louisiana, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantore.
We are seeing reports of damage along the Alabama coast after remnants of Hurricane Ida prompted severe weather there. And we're taking to Saraland. This is just outside of Gulfport. If you look across the street there, you'll see that there's a damaged motel where the roof's been ripped off, and the National Weather Service confirms that a tornado did indeed cause this damage. Also, some damage reported at several other businesses as well. So that'll be another risk that we run, even through tonight and tomorrow. More opportunities for severe weather largely induced by Ida. You can see where we stand tonight with the big spin that's happening right there in Mississippi. But if you watch off of that, and storms will trail down to the south through the night tonight. The storms again rolling off the Delmarva tonight. We've had some severe weather up into New Jersey. And I'm going to show you earlier today, we had a pop-up of storms right here by Toms River in the town of Seaside. Little nice shoreside community, little pop of lightning there. 8 people struck by lightning. Unfortunately, a lifeguard killed in the lightning strike. So a storm doesn't necessarily have to have the hail or the extreme wind to be deadly. Lightning can do that. So anytime there is lightning in the skies, indoors is where you need to be. When thunder roars, go indoors, and that's where we should be when these storms come tomorrow as well. This area that's highlighted in bright red, the most likely location that we'll see severe storms tomorrow. And in almost all of these storms, I think wind more than anything will be the issue, and maybe even little kinks that happen in these squall lines to produce spin-ups of tornadoes. So a torque count of 3 tomorrow, I-10, Pensacola, Tallahassee, Montgomery up I-85 into Atlanta, and there could be some very slight tornado risk all the way up into maybe a Roanoke or a Washington, D.C. But I think that the chances there of tornadoes are pretty low. Going into Wednesday now, so what we just showed you was tomorrow. Let's go into Wednesday now. I'd say Myrtle Beach and the Grand Strand, up through D.C., Norfolk, Atlantic City, maybe even Raleigh, places where we could see some severe weather on Wednesday. But again, the dynamics in the atmosphere aren't necessarily as volatile as they'll be tomorrow. There's a look at the high-resolution future radar. Plenty of storms tonight through Alabama. I think we just absolutely get hammered. But notice that line, how it really starts to get intense. Early morning hours tomorrow sweeps through Georgia, through Tennessee, sweeps through the Big Bend of Florida for us. Want to take it to a place like Atlanta? How about for you? I think there'll be some showers for you in the morning. Could be wet roads, tail end of your morning rush hour. I think the evening rush hour brings in a pretty intense squall line here. Look at the big storms for 6 o'clock in the evening. You put a lot of people on the roads in Atlanta, a lot of volume with storms. It is going to be a serious headache tomorrow night in a place like Atlanta, all courtesy of Ida. Meteorologist Jackie Jarrett's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for us tonight, where people are still assessing the damage there and waiting, of course, for that power to be restored.
After a very busy and noisy day of cleanup here in Baton Rouge, all is quiet tonight. More than 100,000 people still in the dark without power, and a curfew has been put in place from dusk to dawn to try and keep people safe. One of the big issues is that there are so many trees that are down. If you're not familiar with Baton Rouge, it's a city filled with a lot of large, huge trees, and many of them, like this one that you see behind me, have been uprooted and toppled over from the fierce winds from Ida when it came through here. Everybody inside this home is okay. Thankfully, no one lost their lives here in Baton Rouge, but the mayor says it's likely going to take at least 70 hours to clean up all the debris and all of the trees to clear out the roads and try to get this city back to normal. Schools have been closed and will continue to stay closed now, at least through Wednesday. Flights should resume at the airport on Tuesday, but the other concern going forward is the sun is expected to come back out and the temperatures heat up. A heat advisory has been put into effect on Tuesday where it feels like temperatures could reach 100 degrees. That's going to be dangerous for people trying to work in the heat.
All right, Jackie, thank you for that. That's one of the things, Molly, things like life is slowly getting back to normal. Some of these places like New Orleans, but not having power, and maybe not having power for weeks, is going to be huge there.
And I know they're still, at this point, assessing just how extensive the damage is and just exactly trying to pin down a date on when they might have power fully restored in New Orleans. So a lot still to come from that area. Thank you, Mike. Well, we're also getting a look from the air of the damage in Raceland, Louisiana. Our storm tracker, Charles Peak, shot this. Raceland took the brunt of Ida. Widespread damage here. Homes destroyed from the wind and the force of the water. Just listen to what it was like to go through the storm.
We was in the house. My little girl was somewhere else, and all of a sudden I went and sit down by the sofa. I got up, and all of a sudden, pow! And the tree fell on top of the house. We got out of here and we went in the shed. She has a little shed on the side of the door, and we went in there for 9 hours. The 2 bedrooms right there, if she would have been here, she wouldn't be here right now. After she left.
That morning, I really felt sick in my stomach. Like I felt I had to go because I have a 4-year-old little girl. I didn't find out till way late at night because they didn't want to tell me that the tree had fell on my house. 3.5 years ago, we redid the whole thing. And it was blood, sweat, and tears redid the whole thing because I had nowhere to live. And pretty much in the same boat now. Got to start all over. They're okay, and my dad's okay, thank God. It's just a lot of emotions.
People are still assessing the damage Ida left in southern Louisiana tonight. Earlier today, meteorologist Mike Seidel was in Raceland, Louisiana with a look at the damage and the cleanup.
We left Morgan City this morning and drove about 30 miles east on US 90 into Terrebonne Parish and here in Lafourche Parish. These areas took the brunt of the western eye wall in this part of Louisiana. Winds gusting over 100 miles an hour. There's debris everywhere. Look at this. This is not from this side of the street in this home. It's from the building across the street. So imagine the force of the winds that took that roof off and blew it across the street. Notice the bricks are fine. We come down the roadway. This is Route 1. There's a power pole leaning in the foreground. One is down on the ground. We've got a bobcat back here doing some early cleanup of the mess. And look at all the trees. The trees everywhere are down. And the ones on the highways have all been sheared off at the top. In the distance, more roof damage. Just about every roof in the area had some kind of damage. Now, when we first arrived, we went into the town of Matthews, and again, the power poles leaning, some of them down on the ground. Just down the roadway is Lafourche High School. That took some damage. Over on the waterway there, debris blown across the water. And then we got into Lockport. And look at this big tree. And fortunately, about the only tree that we saw that actually fell on a home. And we talked to the gentleman who was in there, and he said the wind howled for 4.5 hours. And if you can think about it this way, 100-mile-an-hour plus wind gusts for 4.5 hours, it was like an EF1 or EF2 tornado on the ground in one spot for that long. It's got a lot of cleanup ahead, power. It's going to take days and weeks for some of these areas to get the electricity back on. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel, the Weather Channel in Raceland, Louisiana.
A heavy rain inundating Mississippi tonight as Tropical Depression Ida shifts to the north and to the east. This is a look at the downpours the outer bands brought to Biloxi this morning. It caused low-lying areas to flood and the rivers to rise. The city warned residents to stay off the road until the system passed. And still some flooding ongoing in Biloxi tonight. As we look at where Ida will be headed over the next few days, it will make a slow trek across areas like Tennessee, up into West Virginia, eventually into the mid-Atlantic, potentially up into the Northeast. That's where we are going to see this slowly track over the next few days. And the emphasis is on just how slow this will be moving, eventually combining with the frontal boundary that will help enhance rainfall. A lot of these areas simply just do not need any more rain. One exception would be areas of West Virginia, eastern West Virginia, actually a little bit of a drought right now. That's really one of the only exceptions. Where we're likely to see some flooding, it's what you see in yellow right here, Washington, D.C. included in that, up into Harrisburg, even into New York City, parts of Jersey. And these are many of the same areas that were hard hit with flooding from past systems like Fred, as well as Henri. That was just about a week ago. So we're adding more wet water on top of this. We have some extremely saturated soil in a lot of these areas. So that will bring down trees just in the smallest of wind gusts. So as we see Ida move
this direction, and then yes, eventually combined with that front, I think where we're going to see some of the highest rainfall amounts will likely be in areas that we end up with some higher elevation. And there could be some areas, you can see like Harrisburg, potentially 5 to even 8 inches of rain. And Mike, I would not be surprised if we see some locally higher amounts, upwards of 8 inches of rain.
Yeah, it could be a serious issue. There's no question about that. So just be ready for it. Just be ready for what could be coming your way. Always keep a real close eye on the weather and what it might be doing for you, especially with the that's coming in. All right, we take a look again at what's happening for us here on the active radar. You can see we've got some areas here. I think I'm especially concerned about northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, and eventually stretching into middle Tennessee for some flooding in that area tonight. I think the flooding is going to be out for us tonight here in the Delmarva. Those storms are moving off. Severe weather does come back for us, and this is going to be some flooding that comes along with the severe weather as well. The thing to watch for here will be high winds. A chance of a tornado could be coming our way as well. Some storms that will extend up through the Delmarva. So again, we're just watching for the possibility of these storms. But a couple of different things are on the table for us tomorrow, including tornadoes. Some of the squall lines that get pumped out of this system tomorrow could contain brief tornadoes. Watch for that and be ready. We're back right after this.
Make this the summer of sand on the floorboard and mud on the tires. Where one wave introduced you to 1,000 friends you didn't know you had, and one